Greetings, all. Vanna here. Welcome to Vibes with the Archives.
I'm Kimmy, and on today's episode, we will be discussing natal charts, all the 12 zodiacs, and house placements. Vanna, would you like to lead off with the three main important zodiac signs and the 12 houses? First one.
Absolutely. So, the most important thing when working with a natal chart of any kind is having the exact time and place of your birth. The easiest place to get this information is with your birth certificate itself. And this is important because a natal chart is basically an astrological map as to what the stars and planets were doing at the moment you were born. I have personally come to see this as the sort of unique ingredients list that we are all created with. And it's up to us what we do with those ingredients. Like you could take the same basic items and create a pizza dough, or you could create a cake. Ultimately, it's what you do with the energy and information that you get from these natal charts that makes you who you are. And I say that because there are a lot of associations and um, preconceived notions when it comes to signs, symbols, and the houses themselves. So before we get into this, it is the most important thing for you to know that none of this makes a set in stone discernment of who you are. All of this is just something to help you know, like where your strengths lie, where you might have a weakness, or when there are certain challenges that you will face in your life. It's just something to help you better understand yourself.
Oh, absolutely. No part of zodiac sign is more important than the other. We have each one in our chart, and it helps us in their each ways the positive and sometimes the lessened aspects as well that we need to navigate at different parts of our lives. So when
Absolutely.
people are being hard on certain zodiac signs, just remember that we all have it there inside of our chart, just like a compass. It's navigating us around so that we can, find our way home.
Absolutely. And each of the signs has a different representation. For example, um, in your natal charts, you have your sun, moon, and rising sign. There's also a zodiac sign for each of the planets, but we'll get into that a little later. Sun, moon, and rising are the basic three. The sun sign is the one that you are most likely to just know yourself. See, being born in early May, my sun sign is Taurus because I was born in Taurus season. But but the the reason why we go by the sun sign is because they stay in place for the month long period. The sun sign is related to our ego, our external self, and basically that person that we show to the world. The moon sign stays in place for about 2 weeks ish. Um, and it deals a lot with your subconscious, unconscious, and emotional selves. Being related to the moon signs, it is the parts of you that are not often as shown. Pardon me. The rising sign is the one that is actually the most accurate to who you are individually. Like the way I think about it is like, who are you when no one is watching you? Who are you when you are alone? And that is your rising sign because it is the one that is in the exact position when you were born. And also, when we go into the houses, your house placement is based off of your rising sign and then moving in a counterclockwise motion. And so that's why it is so important that you have the exact time and place that you were born, because that rising sign will fluctuate and shift every few minutes. And you can have a completely different chart setup if you even have a 10-minute difference in your natal chart. The website that I most often use to get a free tropical natal chart is Astrolab. It's very easy to input your information, and they give you a paragraph breakdown of each house and the entire wheel of your star chart and how it was set when you were born. It is a fascinating thing to look at.
It's like getting a whole map for yourself so you can decide, it's your script, really. It's a scripting, and it's an ancient form of star mapping. And it's a mapping chart of you, which is super exciting because, like, you don't have to describe to everything. And also, when they have, the negative aspects to each sign or lesson aspects, that's for you to overcome and to strive to be different. Like, these are guidelines, even. So, making sure that you're taking care of yourself, and like when you're reading through these charts and stuff like that, just remember that um, that you are still going to be you, because I know that there's a lot of people who get nervous about that. And for those who don't have the time, like Vanna said, there is some roundabout ways to find it out too. I know if you research into it, and like with the Lilith, which we'll go over at a later date, but just know that there is ways to navigate without that, because I know there's people who go through fires and people who just didn't know because of adoptions, or during wartime the time isn't going to be exact. So just know that your chart, like she said, that it's just to navigate you. So if you go based off of your birthday alone and just pick your favorite time of day, that can be your chart as well, and you can navigate and see if you resonate from there as well.
Absolutely. I absolutely understand there are some instances where people just don't have that original birth certificate. Like, having it is great for the most accuracy, but ultimately, as Kymmy says, if you just find something that resonates most for you, you'll find your way to it.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, I'm excited. Did you want to go over the first house, the house of for that one here, Vanna?
Absolutely. So, as I was saying, when you're when you come into astrology and natal charts, you hear a lot about, like, oh, what's your fourth house, what's your eighth house. This is a brief breakdown and introduction to each and every one of those. So, as I was saying, with the rising sign starting off your wheel, the first house is in your rising or ascendant sign. For myself, that would be a Capricorn, and it is the house of self. It is also known as the I am house. It is how you see yourself and how you feel like others perceive you. Um, I am can also be related to Aries energy, and you could see that going through the individual chart, the individual houses as well. The I am, the I have of it all, but I feel like that's going to get it very confusing. And I just want you guys to focus. The first house is the house of self, who you are at the very basis and root. Before people start telling you who you have to be, what your values are, what your morals are, who you are at the heart, and how people perceive that. It is sometimes difficult to have an understanding of who you are individually, because we are so often told, like, we are this because of our values, or we are this because of where we live. But think to yourself individually, back to what I was saying about who you are on your own, who you are, like, when your parents aren't there, when your friends aren't there, when you don't have to play a role for someone else. And that is the root of your first house. If you have challenges in this area, This might come up as challenges with your sense of self, your sense of identity, and authenticity. And authenticity is actually one of the deepest roots of my own personal life mission here, is to create and foster places where you are safe and secure to explore and show that most pure, radiant, and divine form of yourself.
That's so exciting. It is. It truly is. It reminds me of the movie Rise of the Guardians when Claus is like trying to tell Jack Frost like what is your center? What is your core? And he's like, I don't know. And eventually he finds out, being kind and being a hero and, keeping that fun alive was his center. And and childlike wonder, these types of things I think is really important on what like Vanna touched on there is like knowing your self-expression. And it's amazing. And I love that. Um, Being a Pisces, it is definitely the dreamy aspects, and it's the first house, so it's one of the zodiacs that it affects. So that's me up in here. Um, for number two house, the house of values. This is the house of I have, which like it's funny that we swap places. Is affects Tauruses. Values money, security, and beauty. It really delves into that self worth and your personal resources and accumulating money and possession through thriving in your values and security and beauty. It's not so much about competitiveness, it's more about flourishing from what you already have, as well as the fact that it covers Leo, earning and spends with flair. You earn you know you love money and you know how to use it is the message I'm getting. Your values of recognition. Like you don't, you're not going to be dealing with people who aren't giving equal um, give and take. With Aquarius here, your unique and unconventional approach to the money, as I've described on the way down to there, is that you know that rest and connecting with your roots is the way to make generational wealth, looking to the past to build the future, and your values. And your values is your future because that's what you stand on. You stand on business. And it really is, and it really teaches you skills and your values and transferable knowledge, like taking everything that you've learned along the way and knowing that each lesson has value to it, and yeah, and knowing that you deserve um, everything that you put in because you know you're going to give it your 100%. But yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about for the second house there, Vanna?
No, I think you covered it beautifully. I love that line of learning something with each lesson because there's a phrase that has changed my life incredibly, which is everything is a lesson or a blessing, and the wisest find both in every situation. And being able to sit down, even in a really awful situation where you could feel very personally attacked by it, learning or at least trying to see what the advantage is, what the reason was, even if that reason was just rejection. Rejection is divine protection. And
Oh,
and in that relation to the second house of I have, it creates a lot of ego in these values. So there's being triple Earth and having so much Taurus and Earth signs in my own chart, I can testify to how confusing it is to get um, values and desires mixed up with what it is you are actually going for. So just trying to ground yourself and keep it clear. Who are you? What is it that you want? What is it that you desire? And that goes into the third house, I think, the house of communication. This doesn't just go with how like you communicate to yourself. This could represent sibling relationships. If you have one thing that Kimmy mentioned was a generational curse. This is one thing that I have taken on in this lifetime to break in my family is generational curses of miscommunication, of addiction, of poverty, of glass ceilings. And we've already broken down several of them in my lifetime with the relationship that I have with my mother. Being able to communicate with her so openly and vulnerably about like issues of trauma that I had growing up, places where I had my trust broken by my family. Her explaining to me some of the things that she experienced, her explaining to me her perspective on things that when I was a child I did not agree with. And because of this open communication that I have with my mother, we are able to heal that rift of that generational curse of mothers and daughters not speaking to each other or having a very estranged relationship. I mean, that's pretty common, even. It's just like mothers and daughters don't get along until the daughter becomes a mother herself. And then it's like a societal need for it to be that way. But in the third house of communications, for myself, this is in Pisces, which is my mother's sign. But it also relates to a very communicative and a very intuitive communicative style, where very much speaking from my heart. And this goes back to the authenticity that has always been my life's mission, is to just embrace what others would call weird, what others would testify or classify as a condition or a syndrome or upon a spectrum of some kind. All of that relates to how you are communicating back to yourself. And if you are labeling all those, putting all those on yourself, just like I think I am this way or I think this is happening because of this, you're still putting those negative labels and connotations onto yourself. So having communication is important, of course, but peeking into what your house is representing in communication might explain if you have a knee jerk to have spicy or heavy words, or if communication is very difficult for you. Or what I'm thinking of is just like if you have Cancer as your third house, then I would think you're very difficult about being vulnerable or exposing those heavy emotions, and you might be very uh, defensive when it comes to speaking about your emotions.
That's true. That's definitely true. And like with thinking and learning, it also affects like how your learning style will be as well because there's like I think the most I've counted is four, but there may be more. We are learning more each and every day. Um, but it's like learning your learning style. Like, do you learn from hands on? Are you someone who needs to write it down? Are you someone who needs someone to like relay that information to you? Are you the type of person who like gets it on an instant, or is it something that needs to be communicated to you over and over again? And I think there's also like the different zodiac effects as well. There, Vanna, that you may want to go over as well after. But yeah, you're learning of different styles Definitely, like if you learn hands-on and navigating, and you can discern that for yourself after your chart, and uh, you might have figured it out on your own by the time you get to your chart for sure. But if you don't have that, then this may lead you into knowing how to navigate going forward so that you can learn more knowledge on things that you enjoy to learn, knowing that if you learn hands-on and like take up apprenticeships or like taking a class, if you learn more from like hearing things, you can learn from podcasts then, and having that information relayed to you. And I think that's really interesting how the house of communication and how I think, and you will be thinking more yourself, which is the point of it with authenticity. And I really enjoy that. Like, I think because the Gemini with quick wit and curiosity and like loves to talk, I wouldn't be surprised if mine was Gemini for there. Um, Vanna, what about you with others that zodiac effects for the house of communication? Do you know?
Well, the Cancer was just one that I was channeling and noting, but when I think of like fire signs, you have like the Leo, which is very prideful. So I'm thinking like King Joffrey, or he's just like he has to state and put out there his role, his status, his power all the time because he has to make it known. And so like, and again, just like if you have any of these placements, I'm not saying you're destined to be an egotistical twat. It's how you are taking that energy yourself, how you are taking responsibility for your signs and your stars. Like for myself, I'm Sun, Moon, Rising, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. That is very heavy in earth and energy, and it makes me incredibly stubborn. And this isn't something that I am just stating as a like a get out of jail free card for me just being bullheaded, no pun intended, about things that I want, but it did, like you were saying, give me a better understanding as to why I approach things in a certain way or why things happened in a certain way when I was working with them.
It's definitely true. I love that. We have like with Virgo is thoughtful and concise communication, and with my rising sign being a Virgo, I definitely see that there's a lot of people who find that like articulating and having conversations and stuff like that, and they consider that one of my assets. And at the same time, it's weird because like with like what you were saying earlier with your rising sign, your ascension sign, uh it shows other people. That's how other people are perceiving you, because that's the one that shines through, because you're leading, that's your compass, like besides the north node, of course, but that's the one where it's like pulling from that center. So the fact that people are like, oh, you're very thoughtful and you have precise communication, I'm like, yay, but I'm actually squishy Pisces on the inside.
Oh yeah,
And
I love like the astrological humor that develops. It's just like, oh, that's so Virgo of you.
I know it's one of the things that my partner is like, he's like, he'll roll his eyes about, because he's very much into this, but he doesn't like the stereotypes and the cliches that are thrown at it. Like I said at the beginning with the chart, like you have every single one of those signs. So I'm sorry to tell you, anyone, if you've been making fun of certain signs, I'm going to tell you right now, you have that sign in a part of your chart, because you have every single 12 house. Every single 12 of those houses is in your chart. You can't get away from it. You may not have planets in that house, but it doesn't mean that it's not a part of your chart regardless, which is why we're going over it. And like and That's really great because with the House of Communication is like uh, the philosophy, having philosophical um attestments and big thinking, like big picture thinkers, is the House of Communication. So, when you look up your third house, you're going to be seeing like who's a how do you think big? Like where are you going to be shining through the most? Like how are you going to get your message across? And for some of you, your communication might not be even with words. It might be through another medium where you may paint on a canvas, and that's how you learn to communicate with others, how you feel through a playlist or um, all these different ways. So your communication style, like with your love languages, that's a communication style too. You may find that through your Venus charts there at another time we'll talk about as well. Um, which is really great. And then you have the fourth house, which is the house of home and roots. And that is the part of the chart that is I nurture. What are you nurturing with your themes of the fourth house? You have family, emotional foundation, and a private life. It gives me the card of the Four of Wands and
That's
Hermit.
exactly what
It
I
really
was
does.
saying. I was exactly saying Four of Wands.
Four of Wands and like a little bit of Hermit because you know that you need a little bit of like alone time and a time to flourish with others. This is not just familial of bloodline. This is your chosen family, which is why private life is also important for it because you have a private life besides with your family and friends and stuff. I would hope, some of us are introverts and that's fine, but I still would hope that you would have at least a kitty or something to love on. Um, Something that brings you joy. But for the house of home and roots, the zodiac effects are Cancer, deeply connected to the home and traditions. That should be no surprise. Um, but they are also not like when they're connected to home and traditions, it's not just the ones that have been set in stone. They like to create their own traditions. They'll be the ones who will start, something that you never thought to have. They'll bring the crazy tasty dip that everyone loves, and then it's a tradition to bring at like book club night or something like that effect, connecting the home. And with Scorpio, like they have an intense and private family dynamic. So if you have like we'll go in another date, of course, but like if you have placements in there, you can very much find yourself feeling very private, or you thrive under your own guidance. You don't like outside, like um people weighing in on things, so you can be very intense and private about what you got going on with your family. So you may not be online a lot, or you may be very discerning with what you share. Capricorns for sure. With my partner, I can say this is definitely true, that in their home and their roots, they're responsible and structured to the approach of home life. Absolutely, like with structure and responsibility. Taking responsibility for the home. They really do enjoy being part of the home and taking care of things, finding roots and being stable, especially if it's within their power, they'll do so. Like they will say that they're very committed to working, but the reason behind it is that sense of responsibility and to provide a good stable environment. That Four of Wands, like they aren't throwing up those banners to celebrate nothing, there is a time to work and there is a time to dance, and that's what those three signs do here for the fourth house. And whichever one you have will be. And it will be set out that you remember to celebrate. It's the one that reminds you to enjoy the feast and slow down and, take in the sunshine on your face as you're walking and, having a reason to connect because you can be as focused as much as you want, but if you become so focused on becoming better and too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and if you're focusing on growth all the time, then you're not making those connections that you know will foster a village and a community, and you can't have a village and a community if you're not being a villager. So like the home and the roots can be very important for making that emotional foundation, and balanced with the private life, knowing when to share and when to just enjoy the other side of the conversation. Um, um, if you have anything to add on for number four, Vanna?
No, I love that so much. And absolutely, there is like that important balance of what in my life is like public and what in my life is absolutely private. And
Yeah.
that does immediately go into the fifth house, the house of creativity and pleasure. I serve, and this is like passion. And I absolutely love this because I'm seeing the lovers card, and like most people would say that would be related to the seventh house, the house of partnership. But the
Mhm.
root of the lovers card in tarot is passion, is what ignites that flame, ignites that heart. And so this fifth house can be very much related to like your artistic pleasures or passions, how it is you like express yourself creatively. Like, are you a sculptor? Are you a writer? Or do you express your creativity through code in programming? Or are you an incredible chef? Creativity comes out in so many different ways, and ultimately it is what lights you up, what makes you the happiest, what can you uniquely serve and bring to this world, something that no one else can do exactly what you can do. That is the root of the fifth house. That is the root of this incredible, so divine feminine. Just the energy of creation, being that source of creation. And please do not be rejecting of that energy because there is that label of feminine. Every single person has divine feminine energy. Every single person has divine masculine energy. Even when it comes to the houses, all of the even number houses are yin energy or divine feminine energy. It was actually very interesting when I was doing research for this and going through all of my planetary placements are in even numbered houses. So there is like an incredible amount of yin energy in my chart. Um,
I-
the fifth house is represented by Leo, which is the fiery and the passionate. He is very ambitious. When you think about a lion, when you think about their strength, how they will stand for what they have, like they leave an impact in their world. And there is very little that could stop a lion from getting what it is that they want.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. That describes it perfectly. I like how the lions, they always thrive on their creativity. And it's like, especially since you mentioned like the divine feminine, with the lions, like the feminines are the ones who go and they hunt and they, even though that the male, there's only one male and like he's not the one in charge, they will go out and hunt and they will be the one who thrive on like strategy, like creative expression can be strategic knowing how to be 10 steps ahead of the curve and knowing what's coming around the corner, being able to know what the next trends are going to be and be a trendsetter. Like just knowing what's coming next and being able to adapt so easily, and seeing that meme like adapt, improvise, overcome, and that's definitely the house of creativity and pleasure. We have the sixth house, which is the house of health and routine, where we have mm, I partner. I believe we're at I partner now. Yeah, I partner. And when you partner with people, especially, it is, having healthy partners and a routine is important, and to be of service to yourself and others, which is the theme for for the sixth house. We have work habits, health, daily routine, and service. And to remember to be a service to yourself as well to others, which makes sense because we have the zodiac effects that represent it is Virgo, the practical, organized, and health conscious. Will help you through like finding if you need a holistic ways, whether that's due to monetary reasons or personal choices. That's up to you. But that's finding what your daily routines are, how your health, your work habits. Like with Sagittarius, who's freedom loving and struggles sometimes with rigid routines, but is also very intuitive and follows spirit's lead. So, like, knowing that there is some stereotypes, but sometimes when you break it down, what it is that they're following is. Now, there can be the lesson aspects of knowing when you're following spirit's guide and lead, or if it's just freedom loving and no work, no work and all play can let things get away from you. And when you're all work and no play, it feels like another day. So when you're doing the house of healthy and routine, you got to remember to balance your life and work, not bringing your work home with you, like with Aquarius. They have unconventional daily habits, but they know how to leave that energy at the door when they come home. They're very innovative. They know how to create nothing, create something out of nothing. Um, they know how to create nothing too. Like if they want to just do nothing, they are not going to let anyone get in their way of that, which is how the sixth house is supposed to be a house of health and routine, is bringing routine and health to yourself and others. So being of service to others is also working on not being um, overtaken by people pleasing. And
Absolutely. One of the
which
best things you could do for another person is to say no when you cannot give in any situation.
which you lead, yeah, which absolutely, I think that's going to be perfect way to start up for the next one there, Vanna.
Oh, absolutely. The seventh house, the I partner, the house of partnership, is how you act and deal with your most intimate relationships. That relationship with your person, your partner, your marriage. And there are challenges in and of itself if there were not good communications in the past, if there's not that sense of self in the past. You can come into a relationship, as Kymmy was saying, with a very people pleasing mentality of, I'm just going to do what I need to do to keep them happy. That is not a partnership, that is a situationship. Close relationships, the one-on-one dynamics that you have with another person, it's going to be very different So, first of all, don't let anyone judge how you and your person communicate. If it works for you, if you guys are understanding of each other, especially when it comes to neurodivergent, autistic, or PTSDs, there are just some things that people cannot handle, like raised voices could be one thing. And in those intimate relationships, you have to be able to have that level of care, not just for your partner, but for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Especially at best, it's a situationship, but it could lead into karmatic partners, and definitely on top of that, even a trauma bond, which is no one is looking for nor deserves. Um, Firsthand, definitely no.
No,
And
I am the child of of a karmic relationship between my parents, and that is not the nicest to be in.
it's personal one. I'm letting you know it's not fun either, but it does heal, and there are other ones out there. And my one friend was letting me know because I'm very coupley, and like d- you may not want to get married. Your soul connections are valid no matter whether or not, because some people you may not be allowed to get married where you are because of, like Vanna said, because of those diagnoses and such, and you may not be able to. Your relationships are valid and your partnerships are valid, especially when it involves partnerships like me and Vanna. Actually, the seventh house would even cover us as well, because we're in a
Absolutely.
partnership for having our duo hosts on a podcast. So like it's not limited to just um it's just not limited to just your own household. I was going to say the house of partnerships, but that's the title. But it literally is. It's like
Yeah,
just partnerships, which is nice.
it's not limited to romantic relationships. That is the most obvious and common for those in this house. But same way, if like if love is coming up in a tarot reading, ultimately it means connection, how you are connecting with another person. And if there has been trauma from the past and it's left you with that very jaded, guarded heart, speaking from experience here, I'm not calling anyone out. I got a damaged heart too. That it all leads into, like, one house leads to another. So the house of partnership leads into the eighth house of transformation and our ability to alchemize the situations that happen to us.
Oh, absolutely. And it's like in finding shared resources. This is, to me, the house of alchemy. This is where you'll learn to use your alchemy energy to its fullest effect. It's where you find your shared resources, being kind to others, giving back, like how with those partnerships and being of service from number six, you can be rebirthed, and your intimacy with yourself and others and the earth too. Like this is what we came here for, is to transform like the earth into, or at least for ourselves individually, into the 5D of being utopia. And through this, we can have our own intense transformation experiences with each other. It's like Scorpio energy. And they're constantly transforming, and like they're like the chameleons of the water signs, and knowing how to express themselves through their experiences. Like Vanna was saying, like you have the experiences that shape you over time, and whether or not you have can take that energy and alchemize it. The poet using the blood to write the poem, um, or whatever the expression is. I don't remember. Um, But Taurus, like grounded approach towards shared finances, like really knowing that everyone should do their part and making sure that everyone feels like they have something to do, because being able to transform is making sure everyone has themselves and also has others. Like with number 8, it's I circulate, like making sure that everything, that energy is in circulation. No energy can be destroyed, it can only be transmuted. And that's like nature's of science law even cover that one. So um, it's not too hard to focus on the fact that, you know, rewiring our brain even and transmuting our old patterns that have happened to us. When you reform the gray matter inside of your brain from having mindfulness, it's literally transmute your brain so that you can function and it's rewired. That's a rebirthing and the death of the old tissues and old, you know, neutrons that were firing off in the intimacy in yourself and connecting to your spirit. Because in the house of transformation, when you go through a lot of that trauma, sometimes the soul can't take it and it won't stay in the body. It'll still be tethered to you, but it won't stay in the body as a way to form a protection. But over time, as you transmute that energy and form that trust with your intuition and your soul, it comes back to you. The return to innocence, so to speak. Um, and it really helps to have that time. And you know, when you are stubborn um, and opening that heart, just know that that stubborn did save you at one point. It protected you. So remind yourself and thank yourself for that coping mechanism that was developed to protect you at the time. It's doing its job the best it can, which leads into the house of philosophy of number 9, of like the different spiritual beliefs and how science and higher education all ties into this. Because like mindfulness of when you're transforming yourself through that rebirth, and like even when I was learning about singing, people went through strokes just because the part of the brain that is on frequencies that you sing, people who wouldn't be able to talk or move or anything were still able to sing. And I just think that our soul's able to sing still. So keeps transforming, and I believe in you.
Absolutely. And give yourself patience and grace because it is not easy.
Oh,
And it's what I love about the ninth house. I explore. You have that ability to find what works for you. This is where you go into like the philosophy of just like, okay, the Socrates of it all. The like you get to explain why it is you think this way, and then you get to talk to this person over here, and they get to explain why they think a certain way. And it's not like them thinking a certain way will suddenly change your entire life. It is if you resonate with that and you adopt that idea, you subscribe to that reality, it will then affect your life. And so, with this ninth house of philosophy, it is so important that you do travel, you do expand your understanding beyond what you grew up with, because you can only get to know the world as deeply as you know yourself. You can only get to know like other people as much as you see and learn the more about yourself. And that's why it's so important that you do get out of that comfort zone. You do like it goes back to like that transformation and the circulation. The energy that you put out there comes back to you. And so like when you see a cycle repeating in your life, that cycle repeats so that you have the opportunity to make a different decision. Have you learned something new from this situation? Will you make it the different decision, or will you go with that same knee jerk or what was easier? Or will you do what is harder? Will you do what is strange? Will you do what is uncomfortable? And again, it's not a pass or fail sort of situation. Please don't look at yourself, your life, or your spiritual journey as a passing or a failing, because you are on an independent journey. I can't say whether you passed or failed because I'm not on your road. I haven't made the decisions that you made to get to that point. I can only say from the decisions that I've made, but again, I haven't seen everything that you've seen. What is right for one person is wrong for another. What I believe that the phrase is, what the pressure and heat that could create a diamond would destroy an emerald.
Yep, definitely.
So it's like how you independently move through this world should shift and change. That's why I personally follow a more spiritual than religious path, because religion puts everything in a box. It puts a confinement upon something, what is and is not allowed within that faith. But spirituality, it very much is, the more I learn, the more I understand, the more I grow, the more I comprehend, and the more I have access to.
I love that. Actually, when I was learning and took a college course for philosophy, it literally will tell you all the greats who discussed it. Um, that it's all arbitrary. It really is. There is no right answers. All the great philosophers that come together and agreed, they were like religion, philosophy, science, because like when I went to a psychologist and he was like, you know, medicines change around and practices change all the time. On what was good 30 years ago won't be good 30 years from now. And it will be in constant change of motions is arbitrary. So please do not be hard on yourself, as Vanna was saying. And which leads us into the next one, because this is the one where you definitely shouldn't be hard on yourself, and most people are, is the 10th house, the house of career and public life, which is where you are, where you achieve. And it's like, I'm achieving. And that's what your achievements are, where you find your accolades that will represent you through your values, as we touched on earlier in other houses. This is where your ambition comes in, your reputation, the legacy you leave behind, and how you show up professionally. Uh, as I said earlier, Capricorns are really good for this, as they are one of the zodiac sign effects, where they're determined and career focused. And as I said earlier, it's because they want to create stability for life. So your home and career and public life can only come together and have an achievement based lifestyle is when you are going to put in that the work, the dedication, and having that patience, like we said, leading into this, giving yourself that extra boost of confidence, give yourself that pep talk. Like live with Leos, most definitely are creative and they crave recognition and leadership. But I feel like in most cases they crave recognition from people who are like minded and have that am ammo for having their life on trajectory. Like, they have, oh, their aims down the sight. There we go. If what they're people who have their aims down the sight, they have their eye on the goal and very goal oriented, they're going to be the ones who they want recognition from. They want recognition from people who are ambitious. and have a good reputation. They're not going to be wait, it's like where the five people around you are the people who make you. So the five people you talk to the most is who you're going to pick up the energies the most of, and you adjust to that frequency. So like with Aries, being bold and independent in your career pursuits, sometimes it's best to pull back when you're in your career and public life, and when you're being bold to what's the saying, a closed mouth fish doesn't get the hook. So remembering to use your discernment, because having a good reputation, being professional, like don't be, gossiping behind people's back, showing up professionally, having that ambition, and not even not just ambition, but also integrity. The house of career and public life is making sure that you have that integrity to back up that ambition, because you can have ambition, you could have a reputation, but it's not going to be a very good one, and leaving behind a bad legacy and being unprofessional is some of the ways that you can be left in the negative effects of and themes if you're off center and not following your authentic self can definitely, or leading with integrity can leave yourself set up to not be in balance. So having a balance of career and public life is also making sure that you are getting out in public, like being at work and being on call constantly and not having a personal life is a detriment to your health. And I feel like at some points, like your journey, like Vanna was saying before, is not putting yourself out there and having that energy come back to you. um, I think that that's really great, that if you're bold and independent, that you're also like having moments to be recognized and have that your accolades given to you. I don't think that we should always be celebrating in silence. So like I said with Leo, finding people who are not in secret competitions and or are genuine, and like genuinely having their own stuff going on for themselves, so that they're so busy winning that they're not worried about what you have on your plate when they're supposed to be sharing a table with you.
I absolutely agree. And I love that. Like the energy of like people like I've got so much good going on myself. I recognize you're good, but also like not just like pulling someone down because they're in a bad situation. And that so evenly translates to the 11th house, the house of community, the house of friendship and social groups, hopes and dreams. And one thing that can be shown by like the zodiac that's assigned or in the placement of this house is like how important those things are to you. Like, for example, my 11th house is in Scorpio. One of the most important things to me is the value and intensity of connections and friendships. I personally do not keep a very large circle of friends. And the ones that I do have very often get weeded out when I realize they are not meeting on that same level. Like Kymmy was saying, if people don't want my success, don't want that greatest and highest good, or are actively working against my success or my happiness, I am not going to keep you around in my life. And that is like that poison and that sting of Scorpio in my chart personally. I would rather have a small group of people that I can trust and I value than to have a lot of people. And this has just always been something in my life. So the sign associated to the house can sometimes give you a little glimpse into how that is affecting or it relates to, into your house. And in that house of community, there is not just the value of friendships in your life, but like the the depth of those friendships. Like, do you have friends that you can be very vulnerable with? Do you have friends that see you without your mask, or is everything very superficial? These are all things that go into the house of community and the house of social groups.
I
Uh,
love that. Ooh.
yeah, known as the house of I aspire. And so, like, when you were a kid and you had like that Power Ranger S team in your head, what kind of people did you want around you? Where did you want to go? I don't know if anyone else did this with their friends, but like I'm
Oh,
remembering this one moment that I had just like my friends from high school, and we all had like this idea or goal to like buy our school with like the money and stuff that we got from being super successful dorks. And okay, like everyone would have this room for themselves, or everyone would be able to pick like their favorite classrooms. And like that kind of, we're very ambitious and aspire to have a sense of belonging, a sense of community where we could just be exactly who we were together. And so, like, who are you when you are with your friends? Where is it that you want to go with your friends? All of that goes into this 11th house.
oh my goodness, that's so awesome. I love that. I didn't do it with schools, but we definitely did it with like the cool, those cool looking like witchy houses on the street. It'd be like we're gonna get that one, gonna live together, gonna do witch stuff.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
I loved that you stated like how you have a small group of knit friends and community for yourself for social groups, and I really agree with that, like for the quality over quantity, especially like a community could be your following for social groups and stuff like that. And with mine, one of the things that really like stroked the fire of my heart while I was creating. And for the first 2 years, it wasn't until this third one here that was coming up that I really got traction. And it was just 12 people that followed me for like the first like year and a half to 2 years. And I was like, it's quality over quantity. I'm like, if you had 12 people in a classroom right now in front of you wanting you to just pull cards for them, that would be a lot. It reminds me of that meme where it's like, is two a lot? And the Doctor Who is like, well, if it's two Smarties, not really, but if it's if it's two people, strangers knocking at your door, that's too many in one day. Thank you very much. So it's like the house of the subconscious